Welcome to your weekly staff meeting, hosted by me, Katy Prange, founder of Katy Prange Training and Development, your on demand, relevant training source for staffers who work for an elected official. Let's learn something. Today's staff meeting is one of my absolutely favorite philosophies for being a great staffer, and it is the philosophy of recommending, not asking. So, what do I mean by that? What I mean by this philosophy is that I try to make recommendations to my boss rather than asking my boss what to do. And this has been an extremely successful philosophy for me for many years with many different bosses because it forces me to think about what I would do if I were making the ultimate decision before I ask my boss to make that decision on his own. So, my last boss was an editor. He was not a creator. He would prefer every day to take a draft or an idea and tweak it rather than come up with it on his own. So that is why our team always made recommendations rather than asking. We would come up with ideas, we would write drafts, we'd present concepts within the confines of the boss's brand, and then he would edit, tweak, or adjust those things to be what he wanted it to be in the end. We rarely, if ever, went in and just simply said, "What do you want to do?" We would instead come in and say, "All right, we need to do this. We need to accomplish this task. Here's what we, as, or I, as a staff person, recommend that we do." And then let the boss think about it. Maybe say, "Well, how about this part of it?" And then we would get to a really good finished product. So, how do you do that? This skill requires a lot of candor and those kinds of skills in order to work. You really do need to have confidence in yourself and your ideas, and you have to have a willingness to do a lot of work and resilience to accept the outcome. So you're not always going to get your way, right? And you have to be willing to make recommendations and do the research and come up with ideas that may just end up going nowhere, but they really will present or they really will produce a great result in the end. So, when you recommend rather than ask, you really put yourself out there to be edited. Your draft is rarely the final product, but you have to be okay with that. And that is just how it works, frankly. So, the next time you're tasked with something, present it as a recommendation instead of an ask. It could be something as simple as planning listening sessions or a schedule or a writing a bill idea. Rather than going in and saying, where do you want to go to do your listening sessions? Create a schedule based on your reasons and then present it. You can say, this is the schedule I recommend, and here's why. So maybe you're planning a whole slate of listening sessions, and you know that your boss hasn't been to a certain municipality in a while, or hasn't, or that particular community needs a little bit extra attention. So you put your schedule together that way. Another important aspect to the idea of recommending rather than asking is knowing your boss's style. So think back to times that you have brought ideas forward. Does your boss immediately pull the trigger, make decisions, you know, answer right away? Or would she rather spend some time thinking about what you proposed or asked rather than responding right away? It's really important to understand who your boss is in that respect. So I had a boss who was very contemplative. He or con yeah, that's the word. He would spend a lot of time thinking about the things that I was proposing before he would make a decision. And I learned this the hard way. I'm an extrovert. I like to throw lots of ideas against the wall and see what sticks. I like to argue my way to results. I like to talk about stuff to get it done. My boss was not like that at all. So whenever I would come into his office and just like verbally vomit all over him, I would get a no almost every time. He just would kind of, scrunch up a little bit and be like, nah, I don't think we should do it that way. Or I don't think we should do that at all. But once I learned, and I'll tell you how I learned this. Once I learned that he wasn't someone who was going to make a decision on the fly, I learned to instead send him an email with the idea, with the proposal, give it a day or two, and then follow up and ask if he had any questions. And from that point on, I absolutely got yes almost 100% of the time. Now, how did I figure this out? Luckily, at the company I was working for at the time, they did an assessment called the Myers Briggs. And if you've done the Myers Briggs, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, it's a personality assessment that gives you an idea of how you work best, but then it can also teach you how to work better with other people based on who you are and who they are. And luckily, this company had invested some time and money in me and given me the Myers-Briggs, but then it also had given my boss's Myers-Briggs results so that I could see how we were working together. And lo and behold, it was right there in the results. I could see who I was, I could see who he was. And it actually, in the assessment of the two types of people we are working together, it literally said that I was going to freak him out when I came in and did my thing. So, in order for me to communicate well with my boss, I needed to change the way I communicated. So, something to think about. If you have access to assessments, use them. It's amazing how accurate they are. And it's amazing how, when you look at how one personality interacts with another, how effective it can be to really learn who you are, who your boss is, who your coworkers are, and then work differently. We'll get into more of that in a future staff meeting as well. So let's go back to the original philosophy we talked about today, recommending rather than asking. If you make recommendations, it forces you to take time to think through what you are recommending and why. It will encourage you to do some research, to give it some thought, and to really dial into why you think it's the right path forward. And just by doing that work and presenting that work to your boss, you are giving your boss far more information than he or she had when you would have come in and just asked them what they wanted to do. So I highly recommend you explore the idea of recommending rather than asking. And if you liked this kind of idea, this kind of coaching, this is exactly what I offer absolutely for free in the Indispensable Staffer course. And if you go to katyprange.com, you can download the guide, the manual for free, but you can also get a 6-module video training with exactly this stuff. In fact, this one is going to sound very familiar because it's included in that Indispensable Staffer training. This is the stuff I learned all along the way that teaches you how to be a great staff person. And it's stuff that it's not taught in school. It's not something you're going to read outside of what we do because what we do is so unique. So I hope this helped you. I hope you found something useful out of the training, the staff meeting today. And as you sit down together as a team, talk about how you can use this moving forward. And I will see you soon. Thanks.